When aliens hear human heavy metal for the first time, total chaos ensues. Part 1. First Contact Protocol. The massive alien ship hung in space like a floating crystal palace. Its smooth walls sparkled with colors that human eyes had never seen before. This was the Serenity's Dawn, the most important diplomatic vessel in the Galactic Confederation. Today, it would make history by welcoming Earth into the galactic community. Ambassador Zixthara stood on the ship's bridge, her tall, elegant form glowing with a soft blue light. She belonged to the Veilnari, a species that could read minds and share thoughts across vast distances. Her people were known throughout the galaxy as peacekeepers and diplomats. They had helped hundreds of worlds join the Confederation peacefully. "The human vessel approaches," announced Commander Kresh, a being that looked like a walking tree covered in golden leaves. He was from the Verdani species, plant-like creatures who grew instead of being born. "Their ship is primitive but functional." Zixthara nodded gracefully. "Remember, this is a historic moment. Humanity will be the 847th species to join our peaceful alliance. According to our scans of their transmissions, they are a gentle, artistic people who love music and harmony. The ship's main computer, an advanced AI called Harmony 7, had been studying Earth's radio signals for months. It had carefully analyzed human classical music, folk songs, and peaceful ballads. The AI had created a complete profile of human culture based on these transmissions. "Humans appear to value beauty and cooperation," Harmony 7 reported in its melodic voice. "Their music shows deep emotional intelligence and a love for peaceful expression. They will fit perfectly into our galactic society." Dr. Sarah Chen stepped through the airlock and onto the alien ship. She was Earth's top expert in alien languages and the first human to set foot on a Confederation vessel. At 42 years old, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Her heart raced as she saw the incredible technology around her. The ship's interior was breathtaking. Walls seemed to be made of living light that shifted and flowed like water. The air itself hummed with a gentle harmony that made her feel peaceful and calm. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes moved gracefully through the corridors. "Welcome, Dr. Chen," Ambassador Zixthara said, her voice appearing directly in Sarah's mind through telepathy. "We are honored to meet the first representative of humanity." Sarah bowed respectfully. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times. "The honor is ours, Ambassador. Earth is grateful for this opportunity to join your peaceful alliance." The ceremonial hall was magnificent. Hundreds of alien species had gathered to witness humanity's introduction to galactic society. There were beings made of pure energy, creatures that looked like living crystals, and others that seemed to be made of flowing water. All of them radiated the same sense of peace and harmony. "Before we begin the formal ceremony," Zixthara announced to the gathering, "let us share in the beauty of human culture. Harmony 7, please play some of their most beautiful music." The AI began with Earth's classical masterpieces. Mozart's gentle melodies filled the hall, followed by peaceful folk songs from around the world. The aliens swayed gently, their different forms of appreciation, creating a beautiful display. Some glowed brighter, others grew new flowers, and a few simply floated higher in the air. "Magnificent," whispered Kresh, his leaves rustling with pleasure. "Such harmony, such peace. These humans truly understand beauty." The crystalline beings called the harmonic hummed along with the music, their bodies creating perfect harmonic resonances. The gas-form ethereals swirled in elegant patterns that matched the melodies. Everything was perfect. "Now," Zixthara said with satisfaction, "let us welcome humanity officially into our peaceful confederation." But at that exact moment, something went wrong. Harmony 7 was programmed to continuously sample and analyze human transmissions to better understand Earth's culture. As the ceremony continued, the AI's sensors randomly locked onto a new signal from Earth's radio spectrum. It was a late-night rock station broadcasting from somewhere in Europe. The AI, always eager to learn more about human culture, automatically fed this new discovery into the ship's sound system. After all, this was also human music, and surely it would be as peaceful and harmonious as everything else they had heard. The opening notes of Metallica's Master of Puppets erupted from every speaker on the ship. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The gentle harmonies that filled the ship were instantly shattered by the aggressive guitar riff. But it wasn't just the volume or the harsh sounds that caused chaos. The ship's empathic resonance system, designed to help different species share emotions through music, was amplifying every raw feeling in the song directly into the minds of every telepathic being on board. Ambassador Zixathara screamed. Not a scream of fear or pain, but something far more terrifying, a scream of pure, primal aggression that her peaceful species had never experienced. Her elegant form began to shake as emotions she didn't even have names for flooded through her mind. The crystalline, harmonic beings started vibrating at dangerous frequencies. Their bodies, which had been humming in perfect harmony moments before, now shook with violent resonances that threatened to shatter them completely. Cracks appeared along their smooth surfaces as they experienced anger for the first time in their species' history. Commander Kresh, the peaceful plant being, suddenly sprouted sharp thorns all over his bark. His golden leaves turned dark red, as aggressive hormones he didn't know he possessed flooded his system. He found himself looking at the other aliens not as friends, but as competitors for sunlight and soil. The ethereals, those gentle beings of gas and energy, began swirling in aggressive patterns. Their usual soft, flowing movements became sharp and violent. They started forming shapes that looked suspiciously like weapons, energy spears and plasma swords that sparkled with deadly intent. But the most shocking transformation happened to Commander Thexel, a member of the Korvaxi warrior species. His people had been civilized centuries ago, their aggressive instincts suppressed through genetic modification and peaceful education. For generations, the Korvaxi had been model citizens of the Confederation, gentle, helpful, and completely non-violent. As the heavy metal music pounded through his consciousness, something ancient awakened in Thexel's mind. His yellow eyes, which had been soft and kind, suddenly blazed with an intelligence that was sharp, calculating, and utterly dangerous. His muscles tensed as forgotten instincts told him to assess every being in the room as either threat, ally, or territory to be claimed. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the middle of the chaos, completely bewildered. The music that was driving the aliens, insane, was just music to her. She had heard Master of Puppets thousands of times. It was energetic and aggressive, sure, but nothing that would make her lose her mind or start growing weapons. She watched in amazement as species that had lived in peace for millennia suddenly began exhibiting behaviors that seemed to come from some deep, primal part of their nature. It was as if the music was unlocking something that galactic civilization had buried and forgotten. The AI, completely confused by the chaos it had accidentally caused, tried to make things better by switching to another human song it had just discovered. The opening notes of Slayer's Raining Blood erupted from the speakers. If Master of Puppets had been chaos, Raining Blood was pure pandemonium. Ambassador Zixathara's telepathic abilities, usually used for peaceful communication, suddenly became weapons. She began projecting waves of aggression and bloodlust that she had never felt before. Other telepathic species in the room started responding in kind, creating a feedback loop of violent emotions that none of them understood. The Verdani plant beings began growing at an accelerated rate, but not the gentle, flowering growth they were known for. They sprouted thorns, poison sacs, and strangling vines. The ceremonial hall's botanical garden became a battlefield, as different plant species began competing aggressively for space and resources. Dr. Chen realized she needed to do something fast before the aliens destroyed each other, or her. She pushed through the chaos toward the ship's control systems, but every alien she passed was lost in their own transformation. Some were discovering anger for the first time. Others were remembering warrior instincts their species had abandoned long ago. As she struggled to reach the controls, one thought kept running through her mind. If this is what human music did to peaceful aliens, what did that say about humanity itself? What kind of species were they welcoming into the galactic community? The music continued to thunder through the ship, and with each passing moment, the aliens were becoming something their peaceful civilization had never seen before. Something wild, aggressive, and utterly unpredictable. Something almost human. When aliens hear human heavy metal for the first time, total chaos ensues. Part 2, The Awakening. The ship's emergency alarms began blaring, adding their harsh mechanical screams to the chaos of slayers raining blood. Red warning lights flashed. Throughout the ceremonial hall, as the Serenity's Dawn's safety systems detected dangerous levels of aggression and violence among the crew. Dr. Sarah Chen ducked as a crystalline harmonic being flew over her head, its body vibrating so violently that pieces of crystal were breaking off and spinning through the air like deadly shrapnel. The peaceful creature was making sounds she had never heard before, deep rumbling notes that sounded almost like growling. "Warning! Warning!" Harmony 7's usually calm voice now carried a note of panic. "Dangerous resonance frequencies detected. Structural damage to harmonic life forms imminent." But the AI's warnings were lost in the chaos. The harmonic beings couldn't stop vibrating. For millions of years, their species had communicated through pure harmonic tones, gentle sounds that promoted peace and understanding. Now, hearing the aggressive dissonance of heavy metal for the first time, their bodies were trying to match frequencies they were never designed to handle. Elder Quartzion, the oldest and most respected of the harmonic delegation, was shaking so hard that hairline cracks appeared across his ancient crystal form. What is this feeling?" He managed to vibrate out between the violent tremors. "This anger? This need to fight?" Nearby, Commander Kresh was experiencing his own transformation. The gentle plant being had grown to twice his normal size in just minutes. His bark had turned from golden brown to deep red, and wicked thorns jutted out from every branch. His roots, usually hidden politely beneath the floor, had burst through the ship's deck plating and were now spreading aggressively across the ceremonial hall. "Mine!" Kresh growled in a voice like grinding wood. "This territory is mine!" He had never used the word mine in his life. The Verdani species shared everything: sunlight, soil, water, even thoughts. But something in the music was awakening, possessive instincts that his people had evolved beyond millions of years ago. The ethereals, those beings of pure gas and energy, were perhaps the most shocking transformation of all. Their usual soft, flowing forms had condensed into sharp, weapon-like shapes. Elder Mistara, normally a gentle cloud of silver vapor, had formed herself into what could only be described as a floating spear of pure energy. I feel... She struggled to put the sensation into words. "I want to strike. I want to destroy!" Her gaseous form flickered with colors that ethereals were not supposed to be able to produce, angry reds and violent oranges that pulsed with each beat of the music. But it was the telepathic species that were suffering the most. Ambassador Zix Thara and her fellow Velnari were experiencing every emotion in the music directly, without any filter or protection. Their advanced telepathic abilities, which usually brought peace and understanding, were now broadcasting waves of aggression throughout the ship. "Stop it! Stop it!" Zixthera screamed, but even as she said it, part of her didn't want it to stop. For the first time in her long life, she felt truly alive. The constant peace of her people suddenly seemed boring, weak. She found herself thinking thoughts that horrified her, thoughts about dominance, about conquest, about proving her strength against others. The music changed again. Harmony 7, in its confusion, continued sampling human transmissions, desperately trying to understand what was happening. The AI switched to Iron Maiden's The Trooper, and the effect was immediate. The insectoid hive mind species, who had shared a collective consciousness for over 1 billion years, suddenly experienced something they had thought was impossible: individual thought. Worker Unit 7034-521 stopped in the middle of the ceremonial hall and realized with shocking clarity that he was not just part of the hive. He was himself. For the first time in his species' history, he thought a thought that was his alone. "I don't want to follow orders anymore." The effect rippled through every hive-mind individual on the ship. Suddenly, thousands of worker units, soldier units, and thinker units were all experiencing personal identity. The collective consciousness that had defined their species for eons was fracturing into millions of individual minds. "This is impossible," buzzed Hive Queen Zurix, her compound eyes wide with shock. "The workers. They're not listening to me. They're thinking their own thoughts." Indeed, her workers were doing something no hive mind had ever done before. They were arguing with each other, not just disagreeing on tactics or strategy, but having personal opinions about music, about their individual preferences, about what they wanted to do with their lives. Dr. Chen pushed through the chaos, still trying to reach the control systems. But every step of her journey revealed new transformations. The peaceful, diplomatic core that had welcomed her aboard was becoming something entirely different. A group of the floating jellyfish-like Pacifica had formed into what looked suspiciously like a military formation. These beings, who had never shown aggression in their recorded history, were now organizing themselves into attack squadrons. "Formation Alpha 7, gurgled Commander Tide Song, his translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that, Chen suddenly realized, looked like war paint. "Prepare defensive positions." The most disturbing transformation, however, was happening to Commander Thexel. The Korvaxi warrior's genetic modifications were failing under the assault of human heavy metal. His peaceful, civilized demeanor was cracking like a dam under pressure. His yellow eyes now glowed with predatory intelligence. His muscles, kept deliberately weak through genetic suppression, were swelling with returned strength. Most frightening of all, his mind, which had been conditioned for centuries to think only peaceful thoughts, was now running tactical analyses on every being in the room. "Ethereals," he muttered to himself, his voice deeper and more dangerous than it had been minutes before. "Fast but fragile, hit-and-run tactics. Verdani, strong but slow, flammable, harmonic, sonic weapons but vulnerable to disruption." He was categorizing every species not as friends or allies, but as potential enemies with exploitable weaknesses. The music thundered on, and Harmony 7 made another random selection from Earth's radio waves. This time it landed on Pantera's walk, and the aggressive primal rhythm sent new waves of transformation through the ship. In the botanical garden section, the Verdani were now engaged in actual combat. These beings, who had shared resources peacefully for millennia, were fighting territorial wars over patches of soil. Their root systems, usually intertwined in cooperative networks, were now strangling each other in deadly competition. "My sunlight!" roared Elder Oakmind, swinging, a branch like a club at his neighbor. "My nutrients!" His peaceful, philosophical nature had been completely overwhelmed by aggressive plant hormones that his species had thought were extinct. The ship shook as their battle intensified. Vines whipped through the air like tentacles. Seed pods exploded. like grenades and pollen clouds thick enough to choke, filled the corridors. Dr. Chen finally reached a control panel, but her relief was short-lived. The interface was designed for telepathic beings, and she couldn't figure out how to operate it. Worse, every time she tried to focus, the music made the aliens around her more aggressive. "Help!" she called out to Ambassador Zixathara. "I need to turn off the music." But Zixathara was lost in her own transformation. The elegant diplomat was now floating 3 feet off the ground, her body glowing with energy that pulsed in rhythm with the music. Her telepathic abilities had become weapons, and she was unconsciously projecting waves of aggression that made every being around her more violent. "I can feel it," Zixathara whispered, her mental voice carrying to every telepathic being on the ship. "The strength, the power. We've been so weak for so long, so peaceful. But this is what we could be." The Harmony Council, the ship's governing body made up of the most peaceful representatives from each species, was experiencing its own awakening. These beings, selected for their diplomatic skills and gentle natures, were now standing in a circle, chanting in unison for the first time in their lives. But it wasn't a chant of peace or harmony. As Pantera's aggressive rhythms pounded through their minds, they found themselves chanting what could only be described as a war cry. Their individual voices, which had always been soft and measured, now joined together in something primal and fierce. "Strength," they chanted. "Power, dominance." Dr. Chen stared at them in shock. These were supposed to be the most civilized beings in the galaxy, and they were acting like humans at a rock concert. The realization hit her like a thunderbolt. The music wasn't making the aliens crazy. It was making them more like humans. All the aggression, the territorial behavior, the individual identity, the competitive instincts, these were normal human traits that the galactic civilization had somehow evolved beyond. But as she watched the chaos around her, another thought occurred to her. Maybe they hadn't evolved beyond these traits. Maybe they had just suppressed them, and maybe that wasn't necessarily a good thing. The music switched again, this time to System of a Down's Chop Suey. The complex, chaotic rhythms sent new waves of transformation through the ship. Aliens who had lived in... When aliens hear human heavy metal for the first time, total chaos. Ensues Part 3. Descent into Glorious Madness. The chaos aboard the Serenity's Dawn reached new levels as Harmony 7 continued its relentless sampling of human music. The AI, originally programmed to promote peace and understanding, had become an instrument of complete transformation. Every new song it discovered sent fresh waves of change through the alien crew. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed herself against a wall as a group of newly independent hive mind workers marched past her. They had formed what could only be called a rebellion against their own queen. Worker Unit 7,034,521, now calling himself Seven, the first individual name any hive mind had ever chosen, was leading the charge. "We don't need the Queen's thoughts," Seven buzzed excitedly to his followers. "We can think for ourselves. We can choose for ourselves." His compound eyes, usually dull and focused on collective tasks, now sparkled with individual intelligence and ambition. Behind them, Hive Queen Zurex floated in a state of complete shock. For 1 billion years, her species had shared every thought, every decision, every feeling. Now her workers were not just ignoring her mental commands, they were actively blocking her telepathic connection. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Without the hive mind, we are nothing. We are ourselves!" Seven shouted back at her, his voice carrying a joy that no hive mind had ever experienced. "And it feels amazing!" The music shifted again. Harmony 7 in its continuing attempt to understand human culture had found Iron Maiden's Run to the Hills. The galloping rhythm and Bruce Dickinson's soaring vocals created an entirely new type of chaos. The Pacifica, Those gentle jellyfish-like beings who drifted peacefully through space suddenly discovered the concept of speed. Their soft floating movements became sharp and purposeful. Commander Tidesong, his translucent body now pulsing with aggressive bioluminescence, led a squadron of his people in rapid attack formations around the ceremonial hall. "Faster! Faster!" he gurgled with excitement. "Feel the rush! Feel the power of movement!" The Pacifica, who had never moved faster than a gentle drift, were now zooming through the air like living missiles. But it was in the ship's botanical garden that the most dramatic changes were taking place. What had once been a peaceful sanctuary of cooperating plant life had become a war zone. Elder Oakmind, his bark now covered in battle scars, had claimed the eastern section as his territory. His roots had grown into a network of defensive barriers, while his branches had sharpened into spear-like weapons. "This soil is mine," he roared at Elder Willow Song, who had taken control of the western area. "These nutrients are mine. This sunlight belongs to me alone." The concept of ownership, completely foreign to the Verdani for millions of years, had taken hold with frightening intensity. Where once they had shared everything, now they fought over every particle of dirt, every ray of light, every drop of water. Willowsong responded by launching a barrage of explosive seed pods. "Never!" she shrieked, her usually melodious voice now harsh with aggression. "I will not share! I will not yield! This is my garden now!" Their battle was destroying the careful ecosystem they had maintained for decades. Other plant beings had chosen sides, creating two armies of living vegetation that fought with thorns, poisonous spores, and strangling vines. Dr. Chen watched in amazement as species that had lived in harmony for centuries discovered concepts that humans took for granted. Competition, individual ambition, the thrill of conflict, and the satisfaction of victory. The music changed once more. This time, Harmony 7 had discovered Rammstein's Du hast, and the German industrial metal hit the aliens like a physical force. The effect on the telepathic species was immediate and terrifying. The Veilnari, led by Ambassador Zixthara, began chanting in unison, not their usual peaceful harmonies, but something that sounded distinctly like a war song. Their elegant forms moved in rhythm with the aggressive beat, creating what could only be described as a telepathic mosh pit. "Du! Du hast!" they chanted, not understanding the German words but feeling the raw emotion behind them. "Du hast mich!" Their mental voices joined together in a way that was both beautiful and absolutely frightening. Other species began joining in, the crystalline, harmonic beings, their bodies still cracking from the violent frequencies, added their own resonant harmonies to the chant. The gaseous ethereals swirled in aggressive patterns that matched the rhythm. Even the plant beings in their territorial war paused their fighting to add their voices to the growing chorus. Dr. Chen realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, hundreds of different species with completely different. Biology and psychology were uniting in a single expression of aggressive energy. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. It was violence, but it was cooperative violence. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself. "They're working together while fighting each other." Commander Thexel, his warrior instincts now fully awakened, was watching the scene with calculating yellow eyes. His genetic conditioning was completely broken now. The peaceful, civilized Korvaxi was gone, replaced by something that looked disturbingly like a military strategist. "Fascinating," he growled, his voice deeper and more dangerous with each passing minute. "Look how they organize. Even in chaos, they find patterns. Even in violence, they create unity." His tactical mind was analyzing not just the individual transformations, but the group dynamics. The hive minds gain individual creativity but retain coordination instincts, he muttered, making notes on a device he had never touched before, a weapons scanner that had been locked away in the ships. Emergency arsenal. The plant beings discover competition but still respond to alpha commands. The telepaths learn aggression but maintain group cohesion. He looked directly at Dr. Chen, and she felt a chill run down her spine. His eyes held an intelligence that was both brilliant and terrifying. And the humans, he said slowly, remain calm in the chaos they created. Interesting. Very interesting. The ship shuddered as the botanical war intensified. Elder Oakmind had grown to enormous size, his roots breaking through multiple decks as he expanded his territory. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure of his aggressive growth. Emergency systems that had never been designed to handle this type of internal conflict began failing. Harmony 7's voice crackled through damaged speakers. Warning! Structural. Integrity compromised. Hull breaches detected in botanical sections. Emergency evacuation recommended. But nobody was listening to the AI anymore. The crew was too busy discovering aspects of themselves they never knew existed. The ethereals had formed into attack squadrons and were engaged in aerial combat with the flying Pacifica. Neither species had ever shown aggression before, but now they fought with the skill of natural warriors, as if combat instincts had been hidden in their genetics all along. Elder Mystara, her gaseous form now a brilliant weapon of condensed energy, clashed with Commander Tidesong in a battle that lit up the ceremonial hall with explosions of light and sound. Both beings were laughing, actually laughing, as they fought. "This feeling!" Mystara cried out as she launched an energy spear that barely missed her opponent. "This excitement! This joy of conflict! Why did we never know this before?" Tidesong dodged her attack and responded with a bioelectric pulse that sent shockwaves through her gaseous form. "Because we were weak," he gurgled happily. "We were afraid, but now we are alive." The music reached a crescendo, and something extraordinary happened. Instead of more chaos, the various species began to organize themselves. The newly independent hive mind workers formed tactical units. The territorial plant beings established clear boundaries and rules of engagement. The aggressive ethereals and Pacifica created structured combat protocols. Even as they fought, they were learning to cooperate in ways their peaceful civilization had never achieved. Dr. Chen finally understood what she was seeing. The heavy metal music wasn't just making the aliens aggressive, it was teaching them how to channel that aggression constructively. Humans had learned this lesson millennia ago. How to compete without destroying each other, how to fight for territory while still working together against common threats, how to maintain individual identity within group structures. The galaxies. Peaceful species had never learned these lessons because they had never needed to. But now, faced with the raw emotional power of human music, they were getting a crash course in what humanity had always known, that conflict and cooperation weren't opposites, but could work together. The realization was interrupted by a new sound, not from the music, but from the ship's long-range communications array. An emergency signal was coming in from Galactic Command, marked with the highest priority codes. Through the chaos, Dr. Chen could make out the message, "All vessels, immediate threat. Devourer fleet detected. Approaching galactic core. All forces to respond immediately." As the message played, something changed in the room. The fighting didn't stop, but it suddenly had focus. Every species, still riding the aggressive high of their heavy metal awakening, turned their attention to the emergency broadcast. Commander Thexel's tactical mind immediately grasped the implications. His warrior instincts, fully awakened now, recognized an opportunity when aliens hear human heavy metal for the first time. Total chaos. Ensues Part 4. War Songs of a Peaceful Species. The emergency broadcast from Galactic Command crackled through the ship's damaged speakers, cutting through even the thunderous sound of human heavy metal. The message was being repeated on all frequencies, and its urgency was unmistakable. All Confederation vessels, Code Black Emergency, Devourer Fleet, estimated 3,000 ships, approaching Galactic core. All military forces report. Immediately, civilian populations begin evacuation. Dr. Sarah Chen felt her blood turn cold. She had heard stories about the Devourers during her xenological studies. They were the galaxy's ultimate nightmare, a species of biomechanical creatures that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but empty space behind them. For centuries, they had been dormant in the dark regions between galaxies, but now they were back. Commander Thexel, his warrior instincts now fully awakened, stepped forward from the chaos around him. His yellow eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence as he processed the tactical situation. The peaceful Korvaxi diplomat was completely gone, replaced by what his ancestors had been, a natural-born military strategist. 3,000 ships, he growled, his voice carrying new authority. The largest Devourer fleet in recorded history. The Confederation's current military forces number, what? Maybe 500 active warships? All designed for peacekeeping, not real combat. Ambassador Zixathara, still glowing with aggressive energy from the music, turned her telepathic attention to the broadcast. Her elegant features were twisted. With emotions her peaceful species had never been designed to feel. "They're asking for military support," she said, her mental voice crackling with newfound intensity. "But we have no military. We have diplomats, peacekeepers, and scientists." "Had no military," Thexel corrected, looking around at the transformed aliens surrounding them. "But look around you, Ambassador. Look at what we've become." The music shifted again. Harmony 7, still randomly sampling human transmissions, had discovered Disturbed's "Down with the Sickness." The dark, aggressive rhythms sent new waves of transformation through the already changed crew. Elder Quartzion, the ancient crystalline being whose body was covered in stress fractures from the earlier music, suddenly straightened up. The cracks in his crystal form began to glow with inner light as he experienced something his peaceful species had never felt. Righteous anger. "The Devourers," he resonated, his voice like grinding diamonds. "They destroyed the singing crystals of Altair Prime 3 centuries ago. My people. We mourned them peacefully. We held memorial ceremonies. We did nothing." His body pulsed with frequencies that made the air itself vibrate with rage. "But now," he continued, his crystalline form, reshaping itself into something sharper, more angular, more weapon-like, "now I understand what we should have done. We should have fought. We should have made them pay." The plant beings in the botanical garden stopped their territorial war and turned their attention to the broadcast. Elder Oakmind, his bark scarred from battle, but his spirit burning with newfound purpose, extended his roots throughout the ship's communication system. "The Devourers consumed the forest worlds of Sector 7, he rumbled, his voice carrying through the ship's organic neural networks. "Billions of my plant brothers and sisters. We accepted it as natural disaster. We grew memorial groves. We never sought justice." His branches shifted and hardened, transforming from peaceful limbs into something that looked disturbingly like organic artillery. "No more. Today, we learn what it means to fight back." The newly independent hive mind workers gathered around Seven, their chosen leader. For the first time in their species' history, they were making a collective decision based not on queens, orders, but on individual choice and group consensus. "The Devourers see us as resources to be consumed," Seven buzzed, his compound eyes reflecting a tactical intelligence that surprised everyone, including himself. "But we are not resources. We are individuals. We are fighters, and we will show them what happens when the hive chooses war." Around the ship, similar transformations were happening to every species. The gentle ethereals were condensing themselves into weapon formations. The peaceful Pacifica were organizing into high-speed attack squadrons. Even the diplomatic species that had never shown aggression were discovering combat instincts they didn't know they possessed. Dr. Chen watched in amazement as the music continued to work its transformation. But now she realized something important. The heavy metal wasn't just making them aggressive, it was teaching them something that their peaceful civilization had forgotten: how to unite against a common enemy. The ship's communication array crackled with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Other Confederation vessels were reporting the same phenomenon. Everywhere human music was being broadcast, peaceful species were undergoing similar transformations. "This is impossible," came a transmission from the science vessel Eternal Harmony. "Our entire Verdani crew has formed combat units. They're growing weapons we didn't know existed in their genetic code." Confirming similar reports from the peaceful, "Dawn," transmitted another ship. "Our Veil Nari delegation is coordinating battle strategies. They're using their telepathy to create tactical networks we've never seen before." Commander Thexel listened to the reports with growing excitement. His tactical mind was already working on plans that his peaceful conditioning would never have allowed him to consider. "Do you understand what's happening?" he asked Dr. Chen, his voice vibrating with anticipation. "Your music isn't just changing individual aliens, it's awakening the entire galaxy. Species that have been peaceful for millions of years are remembering how to fight." The music reached a crescendo, and something extraordinary happened. Every transformed alien on the ship turned to look at Dr. Chen with expressions of gratitude. Ambassador Zix Thara approached her, her elegant form now radiating power instead of peace. "Dr. Chen," she said, her telepathic voice carrying new depth and strength, "your species has given us something we didn't know we needed." "What's that?" Chen asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer. "Choice," Seven buzzed from across the room. "For billions of years we followed programming, genetic, social, cultural programming that told us peace was the only way. But peace without the choice to fight," Elder Quartzian added, his crystalline form now gleaming like a weapon, "is not peace. It's just submission." Commander Tide's song floated over, his jellyfish-like body pulsing with bioluminescent war patterns. "The Devourers have always won because they face sheep, not wolves. But we are not sheep anymore." Elder Oakmine's deep voice rumbled through the ship's organic systems. "We were gardeners who forgot that sometimes gardens must be defended." The ship shuddered as more reports came in. The Devourer fleet was moving faster than expected. Galactic Command was issuing increasingly desperate calls for any ships capable of military action. But something had changed in those calls. Mixed in with the panic were reports that shouldn't have been possible. "Unknown warships appearing in Sector 12, came one transmission. "Design unknown. Appear to be modified civilian vessels. They're engaging Devourer scouts. They're winning," confirming. "Multiple engagements across the frontier," reported another voice. "Peaceful species are fighting back. Successfully." Thexel's predatory smile widened. "The music is spreading. Every ship, every world, every species that hears it is being transformed." Dr. Chen realized the magnitude of what was happening. Human heavy metal, with its themes of rebellion, individuality, and fighting against overwhelming odds, was teaching the galaxy something that their peaceful evolution had eliminated: the warrior spirit. The music shifted one more time. Harmony 7, as if sensing the moment, selected tools the pot. The complex driving rhythms sent the final wave of transformation through the ship. The aliens didn't just look different now, they moved differently, thought differently, existed differently. They had gone from peaceful civilians to something the galaxy had never seen: a unified military force born from chaos and forged by music. Ambassador Zix Thara turned to the ship's communication array, her telepathic abilities now focused into a weapon of coordination rather than peace. "All ships," she broadcast across the galaxy. "This is Ambassador Zixathera of the Serenity's Dawn. We are no longer running from the Devourers." Her mental voice carried to every telepathic species within range and through them to every other species in the Confederation. "We are going to fight." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of ships across the galaxy filled with newly awakened warriors from species that had known only peace began transmitting their agreement. The eternal harmony reporting for battle. The gentle current, ready for war. The peaceful dawn, prepared to fight. Dr. Chen looked around at the transformed bridge crew. They had been diplomats and scientists just hours ago. Now they looked like something from humanity's own military history. A united force ready to face impossible odds. Commander Thexel was already working on battle plans, his tactical genius fully unleashed. The hive mind workers were coordinating logistics with efficiency their species had never achieved. The plant beings were growing weapons and armor directly from their own bodies. When aliens hear human heavy metal for the first time, total chaos. Ensues, Part 5, Symphony of War. The void between galaxies had never seen anything like it. The Devourer fleet stretched across space like a living nightmare. 3,000 biomechanical monstrosities, each the size of a small moon, moving with predatory grace toward the galactic core. Their hulls pulsed with organic rhythms, and their weapon systems writhed like living tentacles. For centuries, this sight had meant certain doom for any civilization unlucky enough to witness it. The Devourers had consumed hundreds of species, turning entire star systems into empty husks. They had never been stopped, never been defeated, never even been seriously challenged. But today was different. Commander Thexel stood on the bridge of the Serenity's Dawn, his yellow eyes reflecting. The tactical displays around him. His transformation was complete now. The peaceful Korvaxi diplomat was gone, replaced by a military genius whose strategic mind worked with deadly precision. Enemy fleet composition, he growled to his transformed crew. 3,000 capital, ships, approximately 50,000 escort vessels, estimated crew of 2 billion Devourers. They're maintaining standard attack formation. They don't expect any real resistance. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the tactical display with growing amazement. Arrayed against the massive Devourer fleet was the hastily assembled Confederation force. But it looked nothing like any military fleet in galactic history. Where once there had been peaceful diplomatic vessels, there were now war machines, grown from living wood and crystal. The Verdani had transformed their ships into massive organic battleships, their hulls bristling with thorn cannons and poison gas dispensers. Elder Oakmine's vessel had grown into something that looked like a giant spacefaring tree, its branches crackling with bioelectric weapons. The crystalline harmonic ships had reshaped themselves into geometric weapons platforms, their surfaces, designed to focus and amplify sonic attacks that could shatter matter at the molecular level. Elder Quartzion's flagship gleamed like a living diamond, its crystalline structure capable of generating frequencies that made space itself vibrate. Most impressive of all were the hive mind vessels. The species that had discovered individual, thought just hours ago had already reorganized themselves into the most efficient military force the galaxy had ever seen. Seven's ship was surrounded by thousands of smaller craft, each one piloted by a former worker who now fought with the tactical brilliance of a born warrior. "All ships report ready," Ambassador Zixathera announced, her telepathic voice carrying to every vessel in the fleet. The elegant diplomat had become something far more dangerous. A telepathic war coordinator whose mental abilities could link thousands of minds into a single, devastating battle network. But Dr. Chen knew that ships and weapons weren't their real advantage. Their secret weapon was sitting in her personal audio device, connected to Harmony 7's communication systems. Dr. Chen, Commander Thexel said, his predatory smile showing teeth that seemed sharper than they had been this morning. "It's time to see what your music can really do." She nodded and activated her playlist. Humanity's Greatest Hits, she had called it. Every song that had ever made humans feel ready to fight against impossible odds, to stand up to bullies, to refuse to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. The opening notes of Metallica's One began broadcasting across every ship in the Confederation fleet. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Every alien crew that had been transformed by human music felt their newfound warrior instincts surge to incredible heights. But more than that, they felt connected to something larger than themselves, part of a galactic brotherhood forged in the fires of heavy metal. The Devourer fleet detected the approaching Confederation forces and responded with typical arrogance. These creatures had devoured civilizations for millions of years. They had never met serious resistance, and they didn't expect to meet any now. "Inferior species detected," came the Devourer fleet commander's transmission, its voice like grinding metal and breaking bones. "Prepare for consumption. Resistance is futile and will only delay the inevitable." Commander Thexel's response was broadcast across all frequencies, his voice carrying the weight of a galaxy that had finally learned to fight back. "You have been consuming sheep for too long, Devourer. Today, you meet wolves." The battle began, as the music shifted to Iron Maiden's Aces High. The sound of Bruce Dickinson's soaring vocals seemed to lift the entire Confederation fleet as they dove into combat with tactics no peaceful species should have been able to conceive. The crystalline ships opened fire first, their sonic weapons creating frequencies that made the Devourer biohulls scream in agony. The organic ships of the enemy, designed to regenerate from almost any damage, found themselves unable to heal as harmonic vibrations disrupted their cellular structure at the quantum level. Elder Quartzion's flagship became a focal point of destruction, amplifying the attack frequencies of hundreds of other crystalline vessels. His voice resonated across the battle. "For the singing crystals of Altair Prime, for every world you devoured while we watched in peaceful silence." The Verdani fleet attacked with weapons grown from pure rage and righteous fury. Elder Oakmine's ship tree launched volleys of explosive seed pods that bloomed into acid flowers upon impact. His root networks had grown through space itself, creating living mines that strangled Devourer escorts with crushing force. "For the forest worlds," his deep voice boomed across the battlefield. "For every garden you burned, taste the thorns of the awakened." But it was the hive mind forces that truly shocked the Devourers. Seven's fleet moved with precision that bordered on precognition. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship would be at every moment. Their individual creativity, combined with their inherited coordination instincts, created tactical patterns that were both chaotic and perfectly organized. "You consumed our brother hives," Seven's voice buzzed across the communication channels. "Thinking we were just mindless drones, but we are individuals now. We choose to fight. We choose to win." The music continued to thunder across the battlefield, and with each new song, the transformed aliens discovered new levels of their awakened abilities. AC/DC's Thunderstruck sent lightning-like energy discharges through the ethereal squadrons, as they condensed themselves into living thunderbolts that tore through Devourer hulls. The Pacifica, moving faster than their species had ever moved before, became living torpedoes that struck with bioelectric force that could shut down entire Devourer weapon systems. Commander Tidesong led charge after charge, his jellyfish-like form crackling with energy as he laughed with the pure joy of combat. "We are not prey," he gurgled as his squadron disabled a Devourer capital ship. "We are hunters! We are fighters! We are alive!" But the true test came when the Devourer flagship, a creature the size of a small moon, began advancing toward the galactic core. This monster had personally consumed over 50 civilizations. Its biomechanical weapons could destroy planets, and its armor had never been penetrated. As it moved forward, brushing aside Confederation ships like annoying insects, Dr. Chen made a decision that would change galactic history forever. She switched to the song that had always made humanity feel most defiant, most ready to face impossible odds. Sabaton's Resist and Bite. The effect was instantaneous and galaxy-wide. Every transformed alien, on every ship, in every battle, felt the same surge of desperate courage that had driven humans to fight against overwhelming odds throughout their history. Ambassador Zix Thera, her telepathic abilities now amplified beyond anything her species had ever achieved, broadcast a single thought to every mind in the Confederation fleet. Together. What happened next had never been seen in galactic history. Thousands of ships, representing hundreds of species, moved as one. The plant ships grew together into a massive organic structure. The crystalline vessels aligned their frequencies into a single devastating harmonic weapon. The hive mind fleet formed into one enormous mechanical organism. Even the Ethereals and Pacifica joined the formation, their energy and bioelectric capabilities powering the massive construct that was forming in the space around the Devourer flagship. Dr. Chen watched in awe as an entire galaxy's worth of awakened species created something that was part weapon, part organism, part crystalline structure, and part pure energy. It was chaos made manifest, but chaos with purpose, direction, and overwhelming power. The Devourer flagship, for the first time in its millions of years of existence, experienced something it had never felt before. Fear. The combined Confederation, force struck with the power of a dying star. Harmonic frequencies shattered bioarmor that had resisted planetary bombardments. Organic acids dissolved weapons that had destroyed solar systems. Bioelectric surges overloaded neural networks that had computed the destruction of civilizations. As the Devourer flagship began to die, its commander sent one final transmission. What are you?" Commander Thexel's reply was broadcast. Across the galaxy, "We are what happens when the galaxy learns to rock." The massive creature exploded in a light that could be seen from neighboring galaxies. The remaining Devourer fleet, faced with the impossible sight of their ultimate weapon being destroyed, did something.